Welcome, everyone. Another edition of Back and Forth with Becker and Orr. You can see Kevin there all decked out in his hockey gear from home. I'm in the office, but we're going to have some fun today. Lots of topics to cover. What are we going to be tackling today, Kevin?
Well, yeah, as you can tell from my part, this is the home edition of Back and Forth. You get this usually on most game shows. We're going to tackle a few different topics today. We're going over the investing at a market peak. We're pretty close to that right now. Should we be investing now? Should we wait until there's a pullback? As you can tell, I'm sort of sitting there in hockey gear. I want to touch base on the World Juniors. How's Canada doing? What are we expected to do? Are they going to be able to pull it off based on the COVID scenario? Move on to how the U.S. is going on with their stimulus package. Is it signed? Will it continue to grow? What are we going to see from Donald Trump nowadays? We'll move into hockey season. Jets are here, and as you can see, I got my Jets hat on as well. We'll touch base on the Jets and see if they got any chance of going to the playoffs again this year based on what they've done over the offseason. And finally, we'll end off with our question of the week and touch base on things along those lines. So with no further ado,
to cover.
You got it. Lead us off, Clint.
Absolutely. Before we do, always a reminder, you can get a hold of us, beckerorr.com. You can see the website on the bottom of the screen. It is now live. Lots of content on there, so please visit the site. Lots to see. Also, you can like and share this video. Many ways to get a hold of us. But let's get into it here. We'll go through a couple of the topics you just mentioned. Let's pull up our board. There we go. The very first one here, Kevin, investing at a peak. Now, we have to clarify here. We're not saying we're at a peak now. You only know when you're at a peak in hindsight. It's only after the fact where you can come up and say, hey, that was the top. But the idea being that markets have gone up. Do people still want to invest? There's a little bit of hesitation there. What are your thoughts on the market here?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing you just mentioned. I mean, we never know there's a peak until one's happened. I mean, as you've seen for the chart you've got right here, if we invested at the absolute peak of markets, what would happen? Should we continue to invest? Well, as we've seen, if we just take a look out at the 5 and 10 year sort of numbers, except for the Great Depression in 1929 and the tech wreck in March, you've made a minimum of 48% on your investments. So whether you're investing at the all-time high of the market or not, you still, if you've had the time frame, you've got it. I mean, basically, it's time in the market, not timing the market that matters. And as you mentioned, you won't know it's the peak. So, I mean, what else can you add to this?
Yeah, I mean, this chart, just to give full credit here, Ben Carlson, Wealth of Common Sense, he's part of Ritz-Holt Wealth Management. He created the data here, did the number crunching, and we don't ever know when we're at the peak. So saying the markets are at a high point, I'm not going to invest, I would disagree. I mean, most folks, if you're going to be in the market, you have that time frame. You have 5, 10, or 20 years. If not, you really don't want to be too much in the stock market. But even if you're retired, most retirements last 20 or 30 years. You'd still have that kind of time frame. And the data here shows you, and again, this is if somehow you got the absolute peak, so at the absolute peak of the cycle, you managed to invest, which is very hard to do. You only know that point in hindsight. But even if you happen to have the worst luck and you picked that spot, you still ended up with profitable numbers if you simply held on. So I think it's to the long-term investment mindset there, Kevin.
Well, exactly. You're right. It's the long-term time frame. It's being in the market for the reasons you want. And again, what are the other alternatives? Do you want to invest at, all-time low interest rates? I don't want a 0.5% GIC. It's not making me money. Dividend distributions and things like that from stock alone could make a better play. So variety of different reasons for it. But yeah, I agree with you completely. On that topic, I think we can move forward. As we've seen, putting your money in today is never bad. But yeah, going to the World Juniors, latest chart that we've got up here. As we see, Canada is fine. But again, I mean, the Canadians we expected could be first or second in this division. We unfortunately lost our captain, Kirby Dach, to a wrist injury, which will keep him out 4 to 5 months now. But there's no deeper team in this tournament than we are. 20 of the 25
Do you think it makes a difference that Captain Kirby's not there? Do you think it's going to have a big impact?
No, and I was just going to say, I mean, the biggest problem is 20 of the 25 players we got are first-round NHL draft choices. So, I mean, even without him, we've got such depth that it's not going to be a big thing to deal with. Our biggest problem has been looking at what's a goaltending. And as you can see on the other side, Sweden still in first. They are now 54-0 in round-robin play. They have not lost a round-robin game in 2 years or 15 years, but they only have 2 gold medals to show for it. So as much as they're a great regular season team, as it were, they can't do anything in the playoffs. What do you think these charts are telling us?
Yeah, I mean, right now it doesn't really tell too much of a story, at least not in Group A, because Canada absolutely has the easier division. I mean, the real challenge for Canada will be Finland. That game will take place on New Year's Eve. Yes, we play Switzerland later today, but I think that New Year's Eve game will really determine who is number 1 in Group A. And then if you look at Group B, Sweden, Russia, U.S., Czech Republic, 4 of the 5 teams are all going to be tough playoff contenders. So Canada's really not going to get challenged in my mind until we get to that playoff round. We've kind of had an easier path here to get to the playoffs, which is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I'm not sure. Yeah. Well, but it's kind of the way it is.
For us, it's like playing in the NFL and NFC East division with Washington and Dallas. You're going to get a team that's going to finish like 6-10 making the playoffs, except for us in Finland. That's basically the division we're playing in. We've got no real challenges. So you're right. I mean, it's going to be the middle round when we have to come around and see how things go. But as you can tell, I'm ready for today's game at 5 o'clock, set and sitting there watching. Oh, another quick note is we do have 3 Jet prospects playing in this tournament. So 1 in Canada, 2 in Finland.
There you go. Something to keep an eye on. We'll get back to the financial world here. A quick topic on the stimulus. This is a relevant bill. It just got passed recently, and lots of politics around this, and maybe we'll touch on the political side. But first, let's look at the markets and economics. I think this is good news for the markets. The people are expecting more stimulus, and it looks like they're going to get more stimulus. Is this what folks were expecting, or did the market expect a little more out of this, Kevin?
Well, I think this is sort of what the market had pegged for a while. I mean, they'd always been trying earlier to get sort of a $3 trillion plan. And of course, the Republicans wanted a $500 billion or a $500 billion plan. So, I mean, they sort of thought off somewhere in the rule about $900 billion. Now, I can see the House wanting to do this. Trump has come out and said, no, more money to the Americans. We need to give them $2,000 checks. Now, this is going to be a big test for, are the Republicans beside him anymore, or are we just throwing him out because he's gone on January 20th?
The politics of this are just a mess. I mean, he had his Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, he kind of did all the negotiations on behalf of the White House. The deal gets done, then Trump says, I don't like it, I want more money. Even though the Republicans were saying they actually wanted less of a check, they only wanted the $600. And then the Democrats call the bluff and say, yep, we'll give you the higher dollar figure. We'll give you the $2,000 stimulus. Well, exactly. So now it goes to the Senate to see if the Republicans follow Trump or if they balk and they say no. So they kind of backed him into a corner there.
Well, they haven't. I mean, after this is all after he said it's the worst bill ever seen and there's no way in heck he could ever do anything.
And then he signed it.
Yeah, and then he signs it anyways, just to avoid the government shutdown, I think. But yeah, basically, to me, the thing is, I think you're going to get one Republican senator to object today, and they're basically going to say, no, the $2,000 stimulus checks aren't going there. So it's going to be interesting because that'll lead us next to the big factor is what's going on January 6th when it comes to the Senate and what's going on in Georgia. But, leaving from there, that's sort of the way we see to go. But I don't think there's anything that's going to go on. It is interesting.
Yeah, for investors and markets, I think they were expecting a stimulus. They got the stimulus. Is this going to be enough? I'm not sure. Depends on the vaccine and how fast things roll out. But the whole political side of that, I think that's just the sideshow right now for the markets. Yep. They got what they wanted. They wanted the stimulus package. It got done. The money's going to start flowing sooner rather than later. I think that's good news overall for investors. And
that'll lead us to one more question. When does the next stimulus bill come once Biden gets in? So we can talk about that when it happens.
Save that for down the road. We'll move on to the next topic here. We're on the hockey theme today. And it was announced recently the NHL is coming back, a shortened season. They made a bunch of changes. Kevin's obviously excited. Run us through what's happening with the NHL starting in January.
Yeah, January 13th is the start date. And as we've seen here, I mean, basically what we're going to do as opposed to your traditional NHL hockey season, we're going with 56 games, only because we've got to get it all solved up. Their partner in hockey down in the States is NBC, and it's got to be done before the Olympics begin in Tokyo. Not only that, but we have got a division realignment. All the Canadian teams are going to be playing in what's known as the North Division. And that was recently approved by the government of Canada that they can all play in their home cities. So we're going to be seeing only games against other Canadian teams. We'll get Toronto and Ottawa roughly 10 times, everybody else 9. But it will be interesting to see what the battles look like going forward with that. So
yeah, and what we have on the screen here, what's on the screen is from, I think you got this from The Athletic, Kevin. I think that was the publication. And what they did, the pundits here, they went through all the teams to find out probabilities. How is this team going to do in this shortened season? You can see the numbers there for the Jets. Not the best numbers. They got a 1% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. Less than half, 47% chance of even making the playoffs. What's your take here? The pundits wrong on this one?
Well, I'm a diehard, so I'm always going to say the pundits are wrong. But again, I mean, they make a good, valid point. What did we upgrade in the offseason? We got another second-line center, which helps our offense, but did we do enough on the defense to change what we had last year when we were a bubble team? Obviously, they're saying, no, we didn't. And, I mean, unless we're finishing top 4, it's going to be interesting to see. But I think other than Ottawa finishing last, I think anybody else has a chance to win this division. So we'll have to see where we can go from there.
Yeah, I think the division, certainly all the Canadian teams, with the exception of Ottawa, they're all bunched together. So the odds of one of them just eking out the other, I think it's going to be neck and neck and come right down to the wire there, which teams get in, which ones are sitting out that playoff round. And I think that's reflected in the percentage here. It's almost a 50-50. It said 47% chance of making the playoffs. I think that reflects just how close that division really is.
Tight. It'll be interesting to see, and I'll definitely be in front of my TV because I can't go.
That's the other last point here. The fans in the stands. It's going to be a bit of a mix. Canadian cities probably not going to have fans, at least not on day one, maybe later on. No. But some U.S. cities, Texas as the state, for example, the city of Dallas, they'll have fans from day one. So it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag as that season progresses.
See how they play it. So it'll be interesting from there. So lead us in. What do we have for the question of the week this week, Clint?
Yeah, doing something a little different. Question of the week. We're looking at kind of a recap of 2020. So many crazy things happened in the financial world in 2020. If you had to pick one, Kevin, there's lots, but if you had to pick one, what would be the top financial story for you in 2020?
Top financial story for me is probably the decline we had in March. I mean, it was the fastest 10% decline, 6 days. It was the fastest that we ever got to a market bottom, some 34% roughly in 23 days. I mean, we've never seen anything like that. And based on that, I would have assumed that we were looking at a year end that was going to be very much in the red. But unfortunately, fortunately, it's not. I mean, we're in the black, as it were. So that to me was one of the biggest stories. I've never seen anything that gave us that V-shaped recovery quite the way it's done. What was yours?
Yeah, for me, I have to talk about negative oil. I know so much happened in 2020, but it's the first time ever back in the springtime, negative price for oil. So not only would someone get a barrel of oil, they'd get paid to take it off your hands, which was just unheard of. And because it was in 2020, the second part of why this is such a phenomenon for me is no one seemed to care. It happened, it was a headline, and then we all just moved on. Because in the middle of a pandemic, you had this massive V-shaped recovery you just talked about. In any other year, that would be the story of the year. People would still be talking about it. But in 2020, negative oil price is now just a footnote of everything that happened.
Didn't that sort of happen at roughly the end of April when we had the biggest gained month we've ever had? So you're right. They just ignored it. It was a non-event. It's like listening to some of Donald Trump's speeches. That's what he's going to say, and here we go. But yeah, now that 2020 is basically over, I think we've had a hell of a year to review and see how things have gone. It's been one that I'm sure nobody will ever forget with the pandemic, and we'll see what 2021 looks like. And I guess that's the next time we'll be able to touch base on anything we're talking about.
Yeah, we'll be back again in another week with yet another show in the new year in 2021. A reminder, you can always get a hold of us. That website is now live. We also have other videos. You can check those out as well. Any parting comments or anything last you want to tell the people, Kevin?
No, I just want everybody to have a healthy and happy 2021. And thank you guys very much for watching us. And hopefully we're giving you some insight and information on things. But other than that, I'm just going to recreate until 5 o'clock when the World Junior game begins, and then I'm glued to my TV. How about you?
There we go. I'll be doing the same. So everyone, enjoy the new year. Stay safe. We'll be back again real soon. Take care.